All coming in. We've got a great panel today. We've got Charlie Cichetti and Marty Rozmanith. Thank you guys for joining us today. My name is Morgan Szymanski. I've been kind of doing a lot of the behind the scenes here with our Sustainability Week. Today is the last day of our Sustainability Challenge. Coming in, we've got a great panel today. And sorry about that. We're streaming this live as well, like I said, on YouTube, if you guys want to follow us there. So today we've got, today is the last day of our Sustainability Challenge. We've been collecting questions over the week, you guys' questions, getting everything ready to do this live Q&A. We've got Charlie Cichetti here. Charlie, why don't you say hi to everybody and introduce yourself if they don't already know who you are, seeing you all this week.
Sure. What an awesome week. We've had overwhelming response. It's Earth Week too. So hopefully everybody's had a wonderful Earth Week. Tomorrow's Earth Day. And we can't wait to just answer some of the questions that'll come in. And right, Morgan, we definitely want questions to come in for those joining us live right now, either on YouTube or here in our Zoom webinar. So I'm fortunate to lead a few green building and technology companies, and I just love this work. And we've got an incredible team. We've pulled in a few people from the outside of our companies too to share their expertise. You've seen that throughout the week.
And Marty, you've been so incredibly helpful this week, giving us information about Schema, about AI tools. Introduce yourself again for the folks who are just kind of tuning in or may not know about you as much.
Happy Challenge Friday, everybody. This is my official challenge pre-Earth Day Hawaiian shirt. It was a great
shirt Friday. We did that last year, I remember.
Yeah, so we've had a lot of fun putting this together. It's a bunch of hard work. Hopefully you enjoyed all the videos and everything that we put the content in there for. And we're really jazzed to answer some of the questions that you submitted and some of that you put into the chat here today. So yeah, we're here for you.
We're really excited to get you guys, again, if you have questions, now is the time to ask them. We've collected some questions over this week, like I mentioned. It's Earth Day tomorrow. This whole week has been leading up. It's been a great week. I'm enjoying the sunlight outside and taking advantage of this great Earth Week. So I'll get to one of our first questions. So how will one of the questions we got this week, how will LEED evolve to handle adaptive reuse and rising vacant office buildings?
Yeah, I can take that. Maybe as a LEED fellow that gave me that one day a little while ago. We're seeing that, right? If you just look at the news right now, what's going on with office buildings, not just coming out of the pandemic and remote workforce and who's coming back to the office even just a couple days a week, or maybe even some office tenants who are reconsidering how they should adapt their floors or really where their footprint should be. I think two ways to look at that one, Morgan. I think number one, LEED does give you additional credit if you reuse a building, if you salvage materials, if you reuse walls, right? Technically, there's LEED for new construction and major renovations. And so I think just with LEED version 5, as you learned, don't worry about it tomorrow, but worry about it a little bit down the road. We need to have more credit there for adaptive reuse and just even salvaged materials. And I think we're going to find that as we put more credit to embodied carbon, right? If we've literally got an existing structure, there's already embedded carbon there. So I think as LEED points chase some already in place buildings, even those that were this space type, now we want to make it that space type, maybe office buildings to apartment. I think we'll definitely see a little bit more focus on that.
Excellent. So I got another question here. Are clients using software like Midjourney to show architects what they're thinking of?
I can take that one. Well, I haven't really seen clients or owners using Midjourney. I mean, clients and owners typically hire architects because they're looking for a creative professional to shepherd a building project for them. What I have seen is lots of videos published by architects using Midjourney to explore ideas because they think that whatever experience they have going through developing a program and developing a building, they might be able to use an AI tool just to expand the way they think about the project before they actually get into the serious planning of it, just to create ideas. And as we showed in the challenge, just to have client conversations about specific topics like materiality or the feel of a space or the type of place you're trying to make. So I see lots of architects playing with it to see how they could use it in their own practice and process, not so much clients, but I wouldn't rule it out.
Fantastic. So what are some of the ways energy modeling has changed over time?
Sure, I'll step in there. Technically didn't get an engineering degree from Georgia Tech, but I think I'll take this one. Is energy modeling, what we've seen is some clients demanding it, but really just firms that do energy modeling using the more sophisticated softwares, right? In the early days of LEED, and nothing against it. Some projects, eQuest, Department of Energy, Free Tool, and Train Trace, and Carrier HAP, and some of those modeling tools, there's still a place for it. But just the ask on our buildings, large, medium, and small, is just different these days, right? Can this building be all electric? How are we going to line this up with some pretty stringent carbon goals in certain markets? So our team at SIG, a whole team of expert energy modelers there, we're all in on IES virtual environment. And that just allows us to really use one of the most sophisticated tools in the marketplace. So even while the methodology is changing a little, it's the tools, it's the actual energy modeling software. And that allows us to get to some more of those energy conservation measures that we want to put into the design. Now, remember, you want to iterate. You don't want to just do energy models for LEED documentation after the design is locked in. It's a lot of what we've talked about this week, right? Is more collaborative, more generative, you saw, and just more of that up front. I think another thing we're seeing is the integration of the BIM files, right? Especially Revit. A long time ago, that wasn't as trusted. Some still might not trust it to lay out what we need to do an energy model, but I think we're closing that gap. But again, I hope you've seen some of that here this week.
And how do I create, if I were to go in, how do I create my own catalog building concept in Schema?
I'll take that, Charlie. So we showed you a pretty in-depth video of how to use a few different tools, Spaces, Snaptrude, Schema. In Schema, one of the things you can do is when you have a mass, you can apply a use case to it to turn it into blocking and stacking for a building. And that uses what's called the building concept application. You can think of it like a catalog of the types of spaces that are in a building. And if you've signed up for the extended trial, so one of the things that we did with the Schema folks is we got you a 60-day trial use of Schema instead of the normal 7-day that's on their site. If you're using that, then you have access to the catalog of Creo modular building concept that you can apply, which produces a certain blocking and stacking solution when you apply it to a mass. Now, what we did when I did the demonstration on day 3, we had our own Blue Ocean catalog. If you were to create the same mass I did and apply the Creo catalog, the Blue Ocean and the Creo catalogs will actually do a different blocking and stacking solution because the rules for how to lay out the spaces are different in the two catalogs. And one of the things I mentioned is that if an architect wanted to put their own rules in there, they can. And the way they do that is the Schema team takes their Revit files, in this case for multifamily building, and puts those into the building concept so that Schema will generate their blocking and stacking rules. It's not something you can do as an end user. If you are interested in seeing what that looks like or talking to the Schema team about it, if you send an email to info@blueoceanaec.com, we'll pass it on to the Schema team, and we can connect you to see about doing that. But it's not something that you can do yourself in the Schema software right now.
Perfect. I really appreciate you giving us those resources, Marty. We're gonna jump to some of the questions from our attendees here. Mike McShane asks, what rating can be utilized for the installation of EV chargers for an existing building?
Yeah, I'll jump in there, Mike. Glad you're a part of this. We'll catch up soon. So LEED for new construction, we get some credit if we just put out some carpool parking, some fuel efficient vehicle parking, and maybe even some charging stations. LEED for existing buildings. It's actually, are enough people alternatively commuting? They drive in a fuel efficient vehicle. How are they getting there? Do they take the train? Do they walk? Do they telework some? So yeah, LEED for existing buildings. We want to have those incentives to encourage people to get their plug-in hybrids. I even learned recently Jeep has a plug-in hybrid. It's pretty amazing. And we also just want to focus on laying those charging stations out, not just as an incentive, but check with the city where you're at, because they may even have some EV goals, some money available. The utility companies may too. So Mike, the short answer is LEED for existing buildings. It's going to help make sure that people know, hey, I can drive a hybrid or electric vehicle, get that preferred parking. And so that'll help when we survey, how'd you get to and from the building? It was a more eco-friendly commute. But new versions of LEED, I think I hinted at this, right? In day one, we're going to be required to have a lot more, at least EV infrastructure, electric charging station infrastructure in place, new construction. And we're seeing that start to make its way into the existing buildings too. But technically it fits into the location and transportation category, but it will be grouped with who's walking, who's taking the train or the bus, and who's commuting in a fuel efficient vehicle at this time.
Excellent. So Marty, can you talk about one of our questions? Does sustainability analysis in Schema handle embodied carbon?
Yeah, so we showed some sustainability analysis in Schema dealing with sunlight and daylight, simulation and measurement. And most of those are there for operational sides of the design, so that you can produce a place and understand the positioning of buildings relative to solar angles and things like that. It currently does not handle embodied carbon. However, embodied carbon is something that is available through our integration with CoveTool at this time. So right now, when you do the daylighting analysis, we have that implemented through CoveTool. It sends the geometry of the massing over to CoveTool's web services endpoint, does the analysis, sends it back. We display it inside Schema. That creates a project, and anybody that's currently in a demo account, that's going through our API license. So you don't have an account at CoveTool. You're running it through our agreement with CoveTool. But if you are a paid enterprise user eventually of Schema, and you have your own CoveTool account, what we can do is have the Schema guys use your CoveTool license, and that way, when you generate a building in Schema, go into CoveTool, you'll be able to open it up and do the embodied carbon work there on that building. Eventually, you will see that integrated into Schema. It's part of the roadmap, but it's not something that you're going to see in, say, the next few months.
Thank you, Marty. And that question was from Adrian. Adrian tossed us that one. So we're running almost to the end of our block here, but I got one more question. And I think, Charlie, would you speak to what are some of the green best practices that aren't talked about enough that you specifically are passionate about?
Yeah, thanks, Morgan. And we have a few more questions. We could probably run just a little long. This is exciting times, and we appreciate everybody just setting aside some time to learn from our best practices here. I've made my career around LEED, and I think it's still a wonderful rating system. It's a tool, and LEED version 5 is going to adapt quite a bit. I haven't seen that big of an expansion of LEED since 2009, and that's just something we need to take into consideration. So we'll be patient there. Personally, I'm a big fan of electric vehicles, and so I'm excited about not just that infrastructure need, but how do we incentivize more around that? I think battery storage has not made its way into LEED, for example. I've got our podcast, right? Our Green Building Matters podcast. We've interviewed 270 people around the world once a week, a green building professional. And I promise you, 60% of them have focused on embodied carbon is next, right? So we're literally building tools around that, making adjustments. Just because the studies say by 2035, our buildings as an energy carbon hog will actually not be the operating carbon. We'll have done a good job there with our technology, our upgrades, our retrofits. It will be that embodied carbon is the bigger energy hog when we still look at buildings. Remember that 39% number we're trying to reduce. So, I think just we've got to get it right to weight, embodied carbon, Morgan. Let's have this kind of hybrid building. I heard that, I'm not kidding, 10 years ago at a conference in San Francisco. I don't think it's quite been pulled off yet, right? Maybe California will accept batteries in buildings, but New York City won't. The New York City Fire Department there does not like that idea. And so it's just an interesting mix of some technology, this green building movement, and just, the legislation, is that going to be allowed at the pace we need it? So those are a few things I'm passionate about. Also just recycling, from time to time, we'll do a waste and recycling audit, even though it's only a couple points on a lead for existing building project, just the amount of waste that comes out of even an office building in one day. And so we still have quite a bit of work to do in most of the US, not all. There's some markets do a great job with recycling and composting and even fine you if you don't do a good job. But I think here in the US, we could do a much better job with recycling and composting. That's for sure. So those are some things I'm still excited about that maybe don't get as many points, so to speak.
Thanks for that great insight. If you guys are happy to answer some more questions from our panelists, we got a couple more here. We can throw you guys. Marty, you mentioned this week an LOD 50 engine. Can you speak to what that is a little bit? We got a question from TAC about that.
Yeah, this is we call it it's one of the functions of the approach that Schema has, which is generating BIM level of development 350 data. There's an engine behind it developed by Creo Software over the last 5 years. This is Creo, which was an Eastern European company that not the Creo mechanical modeler from PTC. It's a Creo with a Cray, not Creo with a C. So they sound the same, but they're not spelled the same. And it is the thing that powers what I was describing for the building concepts. So the ability to take data from a BIM tool, turn it into a bunch of rules that allow you to do blocking and stacking layout, and then reconstitute the BIM data back at level of development 350. So that engine was the Creo design engine. That's there's some details about it on the Blue Ocean website, but that's what that is.
Marty, I know a lot of our group are architects. They know LOD 350. You've educated me. The next step is shop drawings, and then there's as-built. So just remind us what's past LOD 350.
Really, it's just LOD 400, and that's what you need in order to be able to get into procurement, purchasing manufactured items that are actually installed in the building. So 350 is what's required for construction drawings and the contract. 400 is what's required to actually procure and install items in the building.
Got it.
Thanks, Marty. I know Blue Ocean is an amazing resource for people. So make sure you guys at home go check out Blue Ocean and all the tools that they have there. Charlie, will you speak a little bit about the Living Building Challenge? I know you mentioned that in our second video of the day. How many Living Building Challenge buildings are there?
For the longest time, there was 10, then 15. So I asked ChatGPT before a live webinar here. There's only 25 officially certified, but there's 399 that are registered and pursuing Living Building certification in some form. So I'm actually really excited about that, because those 399 buildings that are actually trying to become regenerative places, even if they fall a little short, they're going to fall much better than, say, even the LEED program. So it's exciting, but only 25. So I would challenge our audience here to go check those out. There were some early ones in Hawaii and stuff like this. Mm-hmm. Next week, I'm going to be at the LEED Europe GBCI Europe Circle event. But right before it, I get to go to one of those 15 and stay with a good friend of GBS's and a good friend of mine, Emmanuel Powell's, his home just outside of Barcelona. So I get to stay there a little bit next week before the conference. But 25 is actually the number that I just verified, Morgan, but 399 registered pursuing Living Building Challenge in some form.
Fantastic. I love that, we got to inspire our viewers to go out there and make more living buildings. We got a question just now from Juan. What will you recommend for someone who is a student trying to get their APOM certification in terms of where do you start with software programs?
Sure. Thanks, Juan. Well, you have to pass your lead grant associate first. So just remember that 100 questions, multiple choice, where does this fit into lead? Why do I put a white roof on the building, right? We want to reflect light, save energy, and reduce our heat island effect. So go past that lead grant associate exam first. And if you want to specialize in lead APO plus M operations and maintenance, you really are proving you know how to run a green building day to day. GBS, of course, has some fantastic practice test flashcards to use and prepare for that exam. But it is going to focus you on how do I earn these lead credits on an existing building lead project. As far as software, as you go down that journey of operating lead buildings that are already built, just make sure you don't have to master the control system, but you're going to want to know enough to ask, hey, why are we leaving this set of equipment on? Do a midnight on it, audit why are lights on and this equipment running, and then have some other folks come in and adjust those control systems. So pass the credential first, and then we could regroup with us on some software programs that'll help you run your building.
And of course, GBES is the best place if you're looking for any tools to pass any of those exams. So check out gbes.com. So I know, Marty, you mentioned this week using ChatGPT. How are you using ChatGPT in your design and build?
I do not use ChatGPT that much. Most of what we do is procedural. I did ask ChatGPT some things like, where's the best place to go get training for lead certification? And it came back with gbs.com. So that's a unique use of it for this week. But I have been actually using ChatGPT to get feedback on just as a better version of Google right now for question and answer, because it's just better at interpreting the question. There's also obviously code examples. So I've been asking it what the capabilities are for analyzing things like construction drawings, for instance. Right, it has a ton of uses, but I think we described it in the challenge. We didn't really focus on it too much in the challenge. We did focus on some of the diffuser AIs that do images and other things that architects can use in conceptual design. But as far as applying ChatGPT and other large language model technologies, there's examples out there on YouTube of people doing prompts in Revit plugins, people doing prompts. Well, we did in a way do something like that when but it's not in the challenge video. It's in the bonus content on the Blue Ocean blog. There is a one of the blog posts up there under the news section of blueoceanaec.com is taking massing from Schema into Revit and doing conversation starter images for clients with Verus, which is an AI plugin to Revit that uses a language model to interpret a prompt to then produce a rendering of the massing from Schema in a almost finished look, so you can discuss it with a client. So, it's all very early. So we showed a couple examples of large language model prompts, but not necessarily ChatGPT.
Coming soon. I'd add to that, Morgan, if that's okay. I just see some of our team at GBS using, we mentioned this, but AI to help with translations for different languages with our awesome education, have someone local finish it out, make sure it makes sense. So that's just sped up so many things, at our green building consulting, engineering, and ESG firm, SIG. We've already seen team members without being asked to use even the large language models like ChatGPT to reword a technical report, a few paragraphs of it, maybe find some new interview questions for a certain role, right? We've seen maybe on the finance side, hey, you'll use ChatGPT to write a macro and then put that into Excel and save you a little time, and it works, it makes sense. And even at Atos, or 3D scanning technology venture-backed sister company, they're using it for object recognition, after they do a 3D scan of an already built building. And here it's been great for our audience to get to know our Blue Ocean team more, who literally is building generative design tools. So it's here to stay, and everyone needs to lean into it. I know we're probably at time, Morgan, right? So we can have a few closing remarks, unless you had anything else real quick.
Well, Adrian Jackson had one last question, if we have time for it. How do you know when you've generated enough options? What is the strategy you're trying to optimize the place plus the pro forma?
Yeah, I can take that one. So, one of the things that we covered was when some of these tools came out to do this type of context plus mass analysis of a site for site feasibility and some pro forma work for a developer, they really looked at starting with a pro forma supplied by the developer and then generating potentially hundreds of massing alternatives to satisfy that one pro forma. And one of the things I discussed with Daryl Patterson was, the approach that Lend-Lease would take in trying to create a great place, and not just starting with the pro forma, but starting with a whole series of like 50 variables about what makes a great place, because you're always trading off the mass of the building, other things about view corridors and sunlight, and so one of the things an architect wants to do is really figure out what should the mass of the building be, where should it be on the site, what's the best orientation, what gives me the best access to other parts of the urban environment it's in. And then when I get the developer's pro forma, how much of that can I fit into the building? Can I fit more than what the developer asked for? Can I produce something better than what the developer thought that might fit into that site? And so that's sort of the way that we see it, using some of the tools that we showed, is rather than doing hundreds of options for one pro forma, what are the right number of options to resolve the pro forma versus the place you're making? It feels like a dozen is a decent starting point, probably a few dozen. But there's no, the answer is really going to be based on your experience of what that developer or owner is looking for between the pro forma trade-off with the quality of place that they're making, and how that tool's informing that. So I don't think there's a hard answer. I think, however, philosophically, hundreds of options around one pro forma is probably the one extreme, and then there's other approaches that don't necessarily produce as many solutions, but probably better first pass solutions because of the process used to make them.
Well, thank you so much. You guys have been incredibly knowledgeable this weekend. We have had so much amazing response from this whole challenge. I know last fall we did this challenge. We did it again this week because it's Earth Week, and Earth Day is going to be tomorrow. I'm really excited about celebrating that. But I'm really excited to do the challenge that we have coming up this fall. We're planning to do another challenge then. And we've got a whole set of content to talk about there. We're really excited to get you guys involved. And Charlie, Marty, thank you guys so much for answering questions.
Yeah, no, what a great team effort. So I just want to say thank you to all of our team members that really helped pull this off this week. So thank you all. And to everyone watching right now, we hope you enjoyed this. We hope you got excited, but take some action, okay? It's not too late to share this with colleagues or just friends in industry or young professional coming into this industry. This is evergreen. We're going to leave it all out there for you. So you can still go back and watch some videos. If this is the first you're seeing us, but you can still go ahead and share this and over the next several weeks. So if you really enjoyed it, make sure you share it with some others and just reach out. Let us know if you need anything at all. Thanks, everybody, and happy Earth Day.
And don't forget to get the credit for the CE. There's more information on our previous video from today, but we'll put up a link that you guys can go to make sure you take the quiz to fill out to get your CE credit, 3 hours of CE credit that you guys can use, general credit. And again, thank you, Marty, Charlie, for joining us and answering everyone's questions.
Thanks, Morgan. Thanks,
Happy
everybody.
Earth Day, everyone.